Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at health and safety and standards testing for the exam. So what you need to know is first of all who BSI are, who the International Standards Organization are, what ROHS is, and the directives for batteries, plastic and packaging, and then what different types of labelling can mean on products. So first of all we look at BSI. So this label here, this logo, sorry, you've probably seen it quite a lot without even clocking it. It is on anything that's been made by a British company and sold in Britain. So BSI is an organisation and they're involved in the writing of UK standards for quality and safety in products. Companies have to pay to have their products tested against these standards. If they fail these standards, they then can't be put into the market that's deemed as being not safe. And then basically it reassures the consumers that when you're buying it, you know it's going to be to a certain standard, so you know it's going to be safe. So what I'm just going to quickly do is get up their website. So this is the British Standards website. So they can, so you pay them to have your things tested, and once you've done that, that means you can then begin to sell it domestically to be because it's deemed as being safe. So what you can do. So if you look here, it gives you a list of the kind of things that they test. So they test things like automotive parts, domestic furniture, building modelling, financial products, lighting, construction products, electrical products, fire products, personal PPE equipment, gas and electrical energy production. So there's a huge array of things that they test. Obviously, they don't all have the same test. Depending on what the thing is, it will depend on the kind of test that it has. But British standards are known as being like one of the best testers globally, so it's a very, very recognised standard of testing. So a lot of other countries do use their testing as well. You then also got the lion mark here. So the lion mark, that is specifically for children's toys. So if you go back to that BSI list, you'll see children's toys wasn't on there. So the lion mark, that is what you'll find specifically on children's toys to know that it's been tested and it's safe to be used for children. And again, the testing that we used for children's toys will be different from the testing you do for furniture, for lighting, for gas fires, those sort of things. So there's different tests for everything, and it needs to pass all of these tests within a certain amount of tolerance to then be deemed safe and safe to use in market and sell. So other things that are included. So you got the ISO, so the International Standards Organization. So BSI is just one over 150 national standards bodies. So BSI obviously is British Standards Institute, that's R1. But there are over 150 other countries that have got their own testing bodies. So with companies looking to sell in different markets across different countries, they all decide on meeting a specific standard. So ISO that is the whole international one. So if you want it to be able to be sold internationally, it's not compulsory, but realistically, if you want certain countries to accept your product, they'll be looking to make sure have you tested it domestically and you met the standards, okay, and then have you done it international standards. So if you haven't got the international standards, it's not compulsory, but you'll find quite a few countries won't accept your products. Another one you may have seen before is this CE mark, okay? So that is the testing for the European Union. Now, obviously, Brexit and Britain not necessarily being in the European Union after January of 2021, but you'll still find if most things in this country will either have the BSI mark or they'll have the CE mark. It will still have CE mark things in Britain after Brexit takes place, because it's still because if you're buying something from Europe, so if you buy something from Spain, from Italy, and you import it over, it will still have the CE mark because it's been made and sold in the European Union, so you know it's met those standards. So this is all about making sure, as a company, first of all, you're trying to make sure that you're protected because you make sure it's tested, so you know it's safe to use, and it stops you from any potential lawsuits from happening. There has been incidents where things haven't been tested properly, and then the company that makes and sells the product, they then become liable. There was an incident somewhat recently where there was a children, like a cot, a crib for babies that was not tested to the right standards, and it did actually result in a couple of serious injuries and deaths. And then that person, then the company that made it, were then deemed liable, and then serving jail sentences for that because they weren't tested to the right standards. So it is a very, very serious thing that standards are met. You can't just make something and sell it without testing, otherwise you can end up in court and you can end up in jail for it. So RoHS, so restriction of hazardous substances. So this restricts the use of specific hazardous material found in electronics. So out of the 10 specific substances that RoHS restricts, 4 of them are metal. So lead, which is why you no longer have like lead paint, you no longer have lead in pencils. Mercury, so actually now in most modern thermometers you don't have mercury in them. Cadmium and chromium. So those are hazardous, that you can know they're limiting what you can have in electronics in them, because that's why when you're doing soldering, or if you ever did soldering in secondary school, you used to have lead based, and obviously when you heat that up and you get smoke, you're breathing in lead smoke, which is poisonous. So just banning that completely, because it can be seen as being dangerous or hazardous to your health. And then battery directive. So this deals specifically restriction of hazardous substances and the safe disposal of batteries, because what you shouldn't do, and I know a lot of people do this domestically at home, is your A4 batteries from your remote and they just go into the bin. That shouldn't happen, because they've got a hazardous material in it. They can leak, they can cause fires. Obviously, if you do it at home, the police aren't going to knock down your door and you're not going to be dragged away to prison, but companies have to dispose of batteries properly. That's why if you are going to get rid of any big appliances in like colleges and businesses and like that, they have to be disposed of properly and safely, and they need to prove that it's been disposed of correctly. So the plastic identification code. So you've seen this before in the plastics theory. So you're seeing these numbers from 1 to 7. So obviously this really is to do with how well they've been recycled and how you can identify it. So it says 1, so you as a consumer knows, and 2, so the person that is sorting it out can identify easily, and we know how to break it down. It is a legal requirement to have this on all plastic products. Typically now it's molded into the plastic as opposed to having it as a sticker, because stickers do come off. So you'll find that on all plastic products. So you've also got things like the FFC, which is the Forest Stewardship Council. So that is on all timber that is done from a renewable resource. So most companies will say it's always FFC approved. You'll also find that on things like paper products, on toilet paper, because what that shows is that the source of the trees that they've taken and then turned into those paper-based products have been farmed in a way where you're not going to harm the environment. You've also got packaging directives. So this aims to limit the production of promote recycling of products of packaging. So you're trying to reduce the amount of material you use in recycling, and then also making sure that this is recycled as well. So if you take things like frozen pizzas in Tesco's, and rather than having a big amount of packaging in it, trying to reduce that, so you've just got, instead of a giant box, you've just got sort of the sleeve instead. You've then got the WE directive. So this is waste from electric and electronic equipment. So this covers the end of life of electronic components. So again, electronic components can't just be like with battery directive. You don't just chuck it in the bin and it sits in the landfill. It needs to be disposed of properly and taken apart. The EC energy label. So this is compulsory, required on all household appliances. Those things like your heaters, your kettle, your microwave, your fridge, your dishwasher, your washing machine. All of those, I'll show you how energy efficient it is. So what energy efficiency means basically is if, for example, we take like a light bulb and you turn it on and it turns on fine, and then you can touch it and it doesn't get too warm. Okay, that is energy efficient. But if you were to say touch it and then it gets boiling hot, it's not very efficient, because a lot of energy has been wasted because it's creating heat as well. The same thing applies for all of those domestic appliances we've talked about. And if something is poor energy efficiency, it's going to cost you more money to run. So obviously when you then do get your first flat, your first house, go to university, whatever it is, if you have an appliance that's an A++ compared to a D, your electricity bill will be a lot more if it's not very energy efficient. So it does matter. As a consumer, it matters quite a lot. You've then got the EU Ecolabelling. So this is voluntary environmental certification. So this gives companies tells you as consumer that they're meeting a high standard of environmental excellence. So you apply for it. You've then got to prove that you're meeting these standards, and once you prove that you're meeting those standards, you can then have this eco labeling on there. A lot of this is to help companies' public images, because people as consumers now are a lot more environmentally conscious, and that's only going to get more and more as we go forward as well. So it's making sure, like, you want to make sure you're seen as doing your part, so you make sure you meet these standards, then you apply, they'll come and test and say, okay, show us your process, and you meet those standards, they'll have the labels on there as well. The EU Energy Star. So this is an agreement between the European Union and US to standardise how IT equipment is labelled and to show how energy is used, so things can be used across both countries without a waste of energy. Okay, so questions. So you've got 5 questions to answer. Can you please pause the video, have a go answer them, and then we'll go to the answers. Okay, so 2 examples of British standards and what they cover. So BS 7112014 is safety of toys, and BS 62115 would be electric toys. So there are other examples. Those are just the examples that are given in the textbook. So why might companies choose to conform to international standards so their products can be recognised and sold worldwide? What does RoHS stand for and what does it cover? Restriction of hazardous substances. Prevents dangerous substances being used in production of products. What other directives does the battery directive work with to deal with the disposal of batteries and energy storage systems? So use the battery directive along with RoHS and the WE directive, because that will cover all 3. Why are polymers coded? So that it can be separated with ease. So 4 more questions. So again, pause the video, give yourself 4 minutes, try and answer those for me. So what 3 requirements are all members of the packaging directive required to meet? Keep the weight and volume of packaging down to a minimum. Reduce hazardous substances and materials within packaging. Design reusable or recoverable packaging. What is the difference between the WE directive and RoHS? WE covers the end of life of electronic products, and RoHS restricts what materials it can be made from. Why does the EC energy label exist, and on what would you find it? Because in all household appliances, allows customers to make an informed decision. Give 2 examples of criteria needed to meet the eco labelling standards: energy saving, water saving, reduction of noise, anything like that. So that is the end of health and safety standards testing. If you've got any questions, please send me an email via Teams and I'll get back to you.